So, over a year ago, I made a video talking about the 2017 13-inch MacBook Pro, and in it, I was really sloppy. I made a lot of mistakes, both in my review and also in the presentation. There were many things I could have done differently, so I'm going to rectify both of those. Now, some of you may be thinking,
Oh, but Kay, it's 2017. It's 2 years old. It's irrelevant.
yeah. Now, one thing I didn't get wrong in my original review is the fact that the build quality it's amazing. It's a really nice looking laptop. The materials are premium. It feels good in the hand. And there's nothing to complain about, really. The only minor thing I could really complain about if I wanted to be nitpicking is the fact that it's kind of a fingerprint magnet. Fingerprints show really easily on it, especially on the Apple logo, since it's like a reflective material. But that's just grasping at straws. Overall, fantastic build quality, especially in the hinge. I've noticed that it's super easy to lift the display up from the body of the laptop easily with just one finger. It's not going to lift up the entire thing if you try to open it. So overall, it's a great build. There's one thing I want to complain about, and it's the ports. The ports, like, everybody complained about it when it first came out, and understandably. But it's been 2 years now, and Type-C's become a little more mainstream, but it's still not standard, which is a problem. You'd think that a little later in the future, people would have less to complain about now that it's found more commonly, but it's not found more commonly. It's really annoying too, because it's taking so long for it to become standardized that I'm sure as soon as my laptop is obsolete, then it'll just become the normal thing, which... Also, really wish they still had MagSafe. I found it to be very convenient, but now that it's gone, I have to fiddle around trying to plug in the charger into the port, and it's frustrating, and I've probably scratched the side of my laptop trying to do it because it's just so precise in how you have to plug it. It's so much worse than just having MagSafe charging. So now that I'm done complaining, let's talk about the second thing you'll notice on the laptop, which is the amazing display. So it's 2560 by 1600, and it's rated 99% accurate on Adobe's sRGB rating, and it is fantastic for any kind of content production, whether it be photo or video. So no complaints from me here. But this laptop doesn't only have one display, it has two. There's a touch bar right above the keyboard, and this is where I made one of my more large mistakes in my review. In my review, I was talking about how the touch bar drains the battery life of the MacBook by a tremendous amount. That was an error on my part, and I could have easily avoided that, but I didn't for some reason. So this is how it is. If you buy the MacBook Pro 13-inch with the touch bar, you're given the option to upgrade your CPU to an i7, whereas all the other laptops have i5s. That would consume a lot more battery life. And so I have the i7, and it was an oversight on my part. So that's the main contributing factor to the decrease in battery life. It's the i7 just draining it as opposed to an i5. The touch bar is a gimmick. It's only good for the fingerprint scanner. The touch bar, there's a few context-sensitive options that you have where maybe you can open a new tab on Safari, but the only feature I really use it for is for adjusting audio levels and adjusting display brightness. That's about all I use it for. And now we have to talk about the elephant in the room with these MacBooks is the butterfly key switches, which is pretty bad. They're not good by any means. The travel is way too small for me. This is all personal opinion, mind you. I just find the travel to be pretty bad, and they are tactile, but my hands get sore after having to take notes for an extended period of time, so I can't recommend this as a keyboard. If you can get like an external keyboard for when you use it at home, that would probably be ideal if you're gonna have a long typing session. Now, there's also the fact that they are very, very fragile. Just a little dust gets in there and it can ruin the key. And I've had a keyboard cover on my laptop since like day one, so it's not much of a concern for me. The only problem with that being that it makes it less tactile, so it's a little more mushy. And also it leaves a disgusting smear on my display because it's so close to the keys that any kind of layer of protection would just touch the display. So it kind of leaves a mark, which looks gross. But it's better than the alternative of having to pay a decent amount of money to get that repaired. If you're getting it, get a keyboard cover. Now to contrast the pretty bad keyboard, it comes with an amazing trackpad. It's a huge slab of glass essentially, and some people complain that they don't like the fact that you get a legitimate physical like feedback when you click down. And to be honest, I prefer what they're using now, which is essentially a slab of glass that doesn't actually actuate, doesn't move. It's just using the same Taptic engine that's in iPhones for vibrations. It legitimately feels pretty close to an actual physical response. And it allows you to click literally anywhere on the trackpad and have it be the same responsiveness, which is very, very nice because I hate when on typical laptops you physically click it down and it moves. But then when you're using it on like the top corners, you can't actually click it down as easily. So in my opinion, I find that this trackpad is actually really well made, and I find myself using it over most mice that I plug into it just for the flexibility that I have with gestures. Also, the webcam, not good. This webcam it's not great, but at least it's on top of the screen. So, I guess that's the most I could say about it. So the internals of my laptop, I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, I have a Core i7 Intel processor, and 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, for anybody that's wondering what gaming is like, I'm sorry, but I don't even want to try it. For content creation, for production, for videos and photos and things like that, I think it's fantastic in tandem with the display. Now, on Premiere and After Effects, I wouldn't really recommend editing anything over 1080p, to be honest, because it doesn't run very well because the hardware just isn't advanced enough. It doesn't even have a dedicated graphics card. So some things on those programs would probably be pretty slow. I would strongly recommend any 4K footage that you need to edit be edited on Final Cut Pro, because the software is extremely well optimized for the hardware of the laptop. So you get instantaneous playback whenever editing on Final Cut Pro, so I find it to be extremely convenient. Now, it really depends on plugins that you use, because I use a LUT plugin called mLUT, and I love LUTs as someone who, likes to adjust small things in my footage, and I got bored and tired of color correcting every scene. So having LUTs is very convenient, but I found that it slowed down Final Cut to a crawl, where it was essentially unusable. So it really depends on what plugins you're using and in conjunction with other small things. So your mileage may vary, but for the most part, Final Cut Pro runs fantastically on the MacBook. Now, one of the reasons why people generally gravitate towards these Apple products, despite the price tag, is because of the ecosystem. That's one of the large things that they are paying for. And to be honest, as someone who's used 2 Android phones in the past, as someone who loves their Windows desktop, it's hard to disagree with the fact that the ecosystem is so well made. You can argue whatever you want, but the people who disagree are generally the people who haven't tried fully being integrated into it. And once you get into it, it's pretty tough to get out of it because it's so convenient. So some examples of that would be being able to unlock my laptop with an Apple Watch without having to do anything. It just automatically unlocks. Being able to read an article on my phone and then pull it up on my laptop, or being able to message people from my laptop. Small things like that just make so many things hassle-free, and things that you don't really think about once you get into the rhythm of using it are such convenient features to have with you whenever you have any of these products, especially if you have the AirPods and the iPad and the Apple Watch and the iPhone and the iMac and all, like, the whole Apple ecosystem with the HomePods. It just gets absurd how well connected everything is. And Apple knows that because they're still continuing to increase the compatibility between all of these to the point where they want to have a software development kit that applies to both Mac, iPads, and iPhones. So I think it's pretty fantastic. It's pretty easy to see why people get so invested into this ecosystem. But enough is enough. It's time to stop beating around the bush. What do I think after a year of purchasing this laptop? Do I think any different? No, I don't. I completely agree with what I said before. I'm still sticking by that. If you're a content creator who enjoys the simplicity of being able to bang things out in a short time but still want the same level of quality, and you want something that you can perfectly edit in terms of, small display things, whether it be in photographs or in videos, this is pretty much perfect for you. Also, for people who are traveling constantly, making vlogs while they're traveling, things like that, this laptop is really good for. It's also good for people who have the AirPods and every other Apple product because they probably already have the money to afford this kind of product. Now, who is this not for? Well, it's not for the people who already know they don't want it. Simple enough. It's not for the people who want the best value for the hardware specs, because that's not entirely what you're paying for when you get an Apple product. You're paying for the software and the ecosystem that comes with the product. Just simple as that. Now, I hope you enjoy this kind of video, and if you want to see more, just let me know in the comments and what you think, or if you have any questions or anything. Also, be sure to like the video if you really want to see more content. If you're feeling generous, if you're feeling real generous, be sure to subscribe and follow my twitch.tv/burgerburgle. I might even be streaming on DLive. I don't know what it is, but everybody's talking about it. And I hope this is more concise. I hope this is more accurate and a decent review as opposed to my last one, which was pretty rough around the edges and wrong. And I don't know if I'm going to continue filming in 4K, because as nice as it looks and as cool as I feel saying that I film in 4K, it is such a pain in the ass to use because the file sizes are massive and it takes longer to render, and this camera doesn't have an articulating screen, so for all I know, it could just not be recording. I can't monitor audio levels. It's a whole thing. So whether or not I'm going to continue to film in 4K, I don't know. It was just something I wanted to try. But that's going to do it for me. Now, if you don't mind, I will stand over there for a bit to let the overlay do its thing. I wasn't kidding.